Hey guys, welcome back to How to Play True Messiah. Today I'm going to talk to you about combat. In order for our talk about combat to make sense, I need to explain to you the two basic categories of units in True Messiah. On the left are low units. On the right are high units. Even though it looks like there's a lot of different kinds of units, there's actually only two kinds of low units. These four you see on the bottom are followers. Every player has their own unique follower design. We've got black, red, violet, and white. They're all actually the same, they just look a little different because their messiahs have different fashion styles. On the top we see non-believers. Non-believers are basically crummy followers. They behave exactly the same as followers do in combat. So when I say that low units do this or that in combat, I'm talking about either followers or non-believers interchangeably. There are some important differences between non-believers and followers, but we're not going to go into them in this video because as far as combat is concerned, with like almost no exceptions, they're exactly the same. You know what this guy is, right? That's a messiah. What on earth is that? That is an avatar. The avatar is something you can summon during the game using a miracle called Create Avatar, if you happen to get it out of the market. The avatar is kind of an edge case, so we're not going to talk about it today, but just know, for future reference, the avatar behaves similarly, though not identically, to the messiah in combat. Combat between low units is pretty straightforward. Every low unit gets one attack. Every attack that hits a low unit kills the low unit. Groups of low units on a space must attack one other space collectively as a group. In situations like this, it doesn't matter, right? Here we have two groups of two. Everyone's just going to kill everyone, right? Each is going to launch two attacks at the other space. The two attacks are going to kill the two low units standing there. In this situation, this group has three attacks. Two of them kill that guy, and one is just sort of an extraneous attack. And the two attacks from this space will kill two of those three, just like that. Where this gets interesting is with flanking. Because each group of low units can only target one other space, that means that if a larger group like this gets surrounded on multiple sides by smaller groups of low units, this group can still only target one of these spaces, right? But each of these groups can independently target that space. Both of those two are going to die, whereas these two are going to have to attack either that space or that space. One of these two is definitely going to survive the combat. Now this can get more complicated. At this point it's important to talk about the structure of combat. Combat always occurs in two steps. First, every player picks targets for their units. In the second step, all of the attacks are resolved simultaneously. So it doesn't really matter whose turn it is when combat is initiated. What matters is who is targeting where. So in this situation, it actually doesn't really matter where red is targeting because there's only one target for that guy, right? That guy has to target that space. There's only one target for this guy. This guy has to target this space. And well, that alone means those two violet followers are dead. But violet has some choices here. So violet could target this space with that guy, or that space. Simultaneously, with this guy, violet could target that space, or could target that space. Violet could choose, once again, to have both of these guys independently target this space, killing both of them, or violet could have this guy attack there, and that guy attack there, and these two would survive, but the two on the outside would die. Or violet could do some kind of combination of the two, say attacking down with that one, and down with that one, leading to both of those guys dying, as well as the two violet followers. Targets are chosen first by the player whose turn it is, and then proceeding in turn order from there. So that's combat with low units. But what about high units? Let's talk about how messiahs behave in combat. Messiahs are really friggin' powerful in combat. Each messiah gets 4 attacks, and unlike a group of low units, messiahs are not limited to targeting only a single space with their attacks. In this situation, the messiah, sure, can use all 4 attacks to obliterate that group of followers, but because the messiah is not limited to targeting a single space, flanking isn't going to help these guys. In this situation, the Messiah can still hit all 4 of them. Those 4 are all super dead pretty much no matter what. Unlike low units, you actually really don't want to flank a Messiah, and here's why. Messiahs benefit from a defensive ability called Divine Armor. The way Divine Armor works is like this. For every space targeting the Messiah's space in combat, one attack that would hit the Messiah is instead harmlessly deflected. Here, you can see we have 4 different spaces targeting the Messiah's space in combat. That means the Messiah is going to harmlessly deflect 4 of the attacks that would otherwise hit it. The Messiah is going to take 0 damage from this, and is going to kill all 4 of these red followers. In this situation, we have 1 space targeting the Messiah's space in combat. Those 4 are still all going to die, sure, but because there's only 1 space targeting the Messiah's space, that means the Messiah only gets to deflect 1 of the attacks that would hit the Messiah. 3 of them will get through and deal 3 damage to the Messiah. Each Messiah starts the game with 6 health and a mask token. The mask token basically acts as an extra life. When your Messiah hits 0 health, at the end of combat, instead of dying, your Messiah's mask breaks. And at that point, your Messiah goes back up to 6 health again. If the Messiah hits 0 health and doesn't have a mask, at that point, the Messiah is dead, and you're out of the game. And more to the point, whoever killed you wins the game immediately. Alright, you might say, what about a situation like this then? What if you have 2 Messiahs, each going head to head? Well, it's pretty much exactly like what we just saw. Each Messiah gets 4 attacks. They're each going to deflect 1 of the 4 attacks, and they're each going to take 3 damage. Alright, so we've covered low unit combat. We've covered how the Messiahs behave in combat. What about when we mix them? Here's what you need to know about that. Attacks on a given space resolve in a very specific order based on the different kinds of units in that space. Non-believers always die before followers. Praying followers always die before active followers. Active followers always die before the high unit on that space takes any damage. So in this situation, we once again have 4 red followers that are attacking the Messiah's space. Those 4 attacks are automatically going to hit those 3 violet followers before anything happens to the Messiah. That 4th attack, well, the Messiah still has Divine Armor, so that attack is going to be deflected harmlessly. Meanwhile, that poor group of 4 red followers is super dead. They have not just the 4 attacks from the Messiah to deal with, but also the 3 attacks from those 3 violet followers that were on the space. There's an important point I want to make note of before we move on: miracles and combat. You can never play a miracle during combat. Miracles can only ever be played during the action phase. Some miracles have the word preemptive on them. Those miracles can be played during another player's turn, but even then, only during a player's action phase. When a player declares combat, that is everyone's last opportunity to play miracles before the combat phase begins. So let's say we have a situation like this, where Violet really wants to protect this little follower right here. There are actually a few reasons why Violet might want to do that. They might want that guy to remain on that space so they can continue to guard that side of the temple. There are a number of reasons why Violet might want to save that guy. You may recall we talked about a miracle that can do this before. Providence is the miracle for the job. It can target a space. During combat, 1 unit that's on that space that would otherwise die does not. 1 low unit, I should specify. That will not save your Messiah. So, let's say that Red has moved this follower here and has just declared combat. Violet can say, hang on a second, before combat happens, I am having one of my followers pray, and I am playing Providence. You will notice it says range 2. A miracle that has range must be targeted that many spaces away from the player's Messiah. That's the Messiah. 1, 2. That space is totally in range, so Providence can be played there. The game actually comes with little tokens, referred to as Providence tokens. You can use those to mark a space that is protected with a Providence effect. Once all of the miracles have been resolved, we then proceed into the combat phase proper. Everyone declares their targets. Red's attack goes there, Violet's attack goes there. Red is dead. This guy would be dead, but we have a Providence effect, so that guy survives. Keep in mind, the way Providence works, it doesn't actually matter how many attacks are going toward the affected space. There, we have 3 attacks hitting the space that is affected by Providence. Doesn't matter. The way Providence works is, during combat this turn, the last low unit on the target space that would have been killed survives instead. Because that violet follower would have been killed, that follower survives, no matter how many attacks are targeting the space. There's something important you need to know about praying followers. Praying followers are helpless. They cannot fight back in combat. In this situation, we have 2 red followers attacking 2 violet followers. Because one of those violet followers is praying, there's only going to be 1 attack coming from this space. This space, on the other hand, is going to have both followers able to attack. Both of these followers are going to die. Only one of these followers is going to die. That is really bad for Violet, and here's why. If, at the end of combat, there are ever units adjacent to an empty enemy building, those units get to capture or destroy that building. In this case, we have a red follower left adjacent to an empty violet building. That means red now gets the choice to either capture or destroy that temple. Let's say that red chooses to destroy it. All that means is that the temple is removed from the board. It is no longer there. If red chooses, red can instead capture that temple, which means that the temple is removed and replaced by the capturing player's temple. In either event, whether capturing or destroying, that player then gets the option to move whatever units were involved in capturing or destroying the temple onto that space. You don't have to, but you can. Whenever you capture or destroy a building, not only do you get to do that, you also get to loot. Here's what happens when you loot. You take 2 coins from the player you're looting. Once you've looted coins, you also get to loot cards. Look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. You will have the option of either taking one for yourself and putting it into your own discard pile, removing it from the game, or simply putting them back. If there's a card that you think would be really helpful to you, take that and put that in your discard pile. Eventually, when you run out of cards in your deck, you'll reshuffle your discard pile, and that card will become part of your deck. If you don't want any of the cards, but you think one of them might help your opponent, just take it and remove it from the game. Finally, if you're of the opinion that all 3 cards wouldn't help you and wouldn't help your opponent, just leave them in your opponent's deck to clutter up their draws. One way you can win the game is by reducing a player to fewer than 8 miracle cards total. Looting is your main way of doing that. Capturing and destroying buildings is also how you win the game in a different way. If you ever capture or destroy an enemy holy city, you've eliminated that player and you've won the game. Make sure to guard your holy cities, kids. Well, folks, there you have it. That's combat in True Messiah in a nutshell. See you next time.